A sign is an indication, evidence, proof. A sign is something that points to something else. The word for sign in Arabic is ayah. Verses in the Quran are called ayah because they are things that point to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you are to read the Quran and if you are to go through the Quran, you actually find that Allah calls many things in the Quran a sign. He calls the sun and the moon and their orbit a sign. He calls the day and night a sign. He calls our bodies a sign. He calls our insides a sign. He calls our relationships a sign. He calls the love between husband and wife a sign. He calls our diversity in our languages and in our cultures, He calls that a sign as well. And so all of these things are called a sign. What happens if we violate a sign of Allah, if we ignore or disrespect a sign of Allah? Well, in one story, Allah tells us what happened to people who violated a sign of Allah. And that is the story of Salih. In Surah Hud, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He talks about the story of Salih alayhi salam. And what happened was that Salih alayhi salam, his people were given a miracle, a miraculous sign in the form of a female camel that actually came out from a rock. Salih says to his people, هَذِهِ نَاقَةُ اللَّهِ لَكُمْ آيَةٌ, that this is a female camel from Allah, and it is for you a miraculous sign. So don't disturb it, let it eat, let it drink as it wishes. And these people of Salih alayhi salam, his people, not only did they disturb this camel, but they actually killed this camel violently. And as a result, فَدَمْدَمَ عَلَيْهِمْ رَبُّهُمْ, what Allah did was that He punished these people and He destroyed the entire nation. And so what we learn from this is that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls something a sign, then that thing needs to be respected. It needs to be honored. It cannot be violated. So when we destroy our marriages, we are violating a sign of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we waste the resources on this planet and we pollute this earth, we are violating a sign of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we show racism in our community, then we are violating a sign of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's something that we have to be incredibly aware of. So the next time you see something in the Quran being called a sign, then take it very, very seriously. And so I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He helps us to appreciate His signs. Ameen.